Wonderful. So for today, of course, we will start on the back with a scan. And I'll have you do a few things on the back, but then I'm going to have you transition to a side. Now, the important thing is, although I could teach in such a way that you're going to follow exactly what I tell you to do, this side or that side, I do like to give you some choices. Which side when you go to a side, but everything is the lesson. Every movement you make is part of it, is a piece of the puzzle bringing you into yourself, how you do what you do. So instead of it's like, well, I got to do these movements, and then how do I feel? Everything. And again, because of my history, I am a cook, I am a chef, I am a baker. And both of my grandmas were really good cooks, bakers. But one grandma did it because, well, it was supposed to. She had to. And the other one, she couldn't not. That's something I've learned. I can't not do this. And I would ask her for her recipes, and she would say, I can give you the recipe, Peggy, and I will, but it's not the ingredients. What's more important than the exact ingredients, because she was the type of cook or baker that used what she had in house. You know, she wasn't raised or lived with such luxury or conveniences, but she had to use what she had. And she said, it's more your loving fingers, your loving hands, that bring that nourishment into the food. So I'm going to say the analogy is you are responsible for that care, that wonderfulness that you can bring into the lesson for your learning. I will guide you. I will keep sharing with you how to do something a little easier, a little simpler. But in the long run, it's your loving hands. It's your loving energy. And so slowly, bring yourself to lie on the floor if you're not there already. Just take your time. Don't rush. If you need a few more minutes to get yourself on the floor, you do that. This is your time for your learning. And so we're asking you to pay attention to you. Yes, there's a start time, there's a finish time. More important, it is how you really start to find your way in. And for those of you that are on the floor, begin to listen to you. And when you hear that, what is it you're listening to? So listening is an auditory skill. But I also speak about it in a sense of sensing and feeling and thinking and seeing and hearing. These are all the senses, fortunately, we were born with, most of us here. And how much of them do we use? We each have senses that are more potent for us, more our go-to. And some of the other senses, they're a little weaker. But just like Helen Keller, she was born healthy, and within a brief few months of her life, she was hit with a very high fever. I think it was rubella fever, that whited out many of the neurons in her sensory motor cortex and removed from her the health she was born with. And for 12 years, 11 years of her life, she lived in darkness, considered a beast, an animal. And yet she was fortunate enough that this wonderful woman, who was also victim of some of these things that take away from us the gifts of life, she had a teacher, a mentor that helped guide her. So she could find her voice. She could find her way through the world. And I think we all know who Helen Keller was, the pinnacle. And she got frustrated, and she learned how to soothe and calm herself. This is what all infants do. We want them to learn how to self-soothe. We do it a lot by rocking. And so feel what it is you feel right now. And sense your skeleton against the floor. And listen to your breathing. Can your eyes be soft? So you can start with your eyes closed. And maybe you've been on the computer a lot. Maybe there are things that have occurred that, take a deep breath so you can let that go. And let your eyes soften. Because when our eyes soften, our visual cortex is housed in our upper brain, the neocortex. Something in our upper brain softens and quiets. Hey, Gail. And very slowly, as you're resting here, begin to notice, if you haven't already, your breathing. Is there a sensation that there is movement in different directions? Movement into the floor, movement towards the ceiling in an expansion or a deflating, movement through the side of your ribs from your armpit down, all the way down wherever you notice. And then the bottom of your container as well as the top. The container is going to be your torso. I often like to think of it as a rectangle. The bottom would be all the way down by your pelvic floor, even below the diaphragmatic muscle that we think of around the waist, but lower than that. And then the upper container would be where the upper lobes of your lungs, they reside. And they're all the way up in between where your shoulder and your neck meet. That would be the top of your container. And you just listen. Is your natural breathing moving in these different directions? Or is one direction a little clearer for you? And then notice your hands, wherever they are. Can you begin to feel it's a subtlety that I almost fear saying more. Just feel as you breathe into your hands. Just notice if there's any linkage from your breath down through your arms into your hands. And it's okay if you go, no, what are you talking about? It's just a thought. And now very slowly, as you breathe, sometimes it's easier for people, if it's comfortable for you, to soften your knees to bend and bring your feet to stand. And then as you slowly listen, begin to notice as you breathe in, maybe there's a specific vertebra in the back of you that you think that you're directing the breath there. That maybe that portion of your back leans or hugs a little bit more into the floor as you inhale, and then you exhale. And you notice if anything changes. And as you do that, you can move from one vertebra to another, just to focus. Can I find a portion of my spine? And when you go to think about inhaling and you think about a specific vertebra, do you just think of the back of you? What about the front of you? And again, the idea, does this breath move all the way down into your hands? And if you were an infant, and some of you were moms or grandmoms, you might start to remember sensations you felt, things you saw that the baby was doing. Not because they were doing it to do, because they felt it was almost as if there was a current traveling through them. Notice if your hands, as you breathe in or as you exhale, are actually beginning to move gently, and in which way. And from previous lessons, you almost might also think not only of your hands, but of your arms. Are they moving also? Are they elongating or shortening? Are they rotating a little bit inward or outward? And all the way down into your hands, your palms, your fingers. If there's a sensation that starts to awaken, and I'm not going to tell you what the sensation is, I'm seeing it happen. If you're not quite sure of it yet, don't worry. Just listen. This is nice, it's soothing, it's comfortable. And then very slowly, very gently, if you started to think about whether it was going to be on an inhalation or an exhalation, could you start to move yourself a little, just a teeny weeny amount, as if you would start to roll yourself towards one side, but you don't go there. You just begin and then you come back. And notice what you're doing. Is there a specific side you start to gently roll towards? And from that specific vertebra, you might have thought, does it start to transfer into the ribs? And does your head start to follow? Your eyes? And does one arm begin to move in such a way that it would rotate? Does it rotate inward or outward? And do other portions of you start to want to come along? And the idea is, can all of you passively begin to respond so that you can begin to roll yourself so that all of you comes along, but it doesn't have to be simultaneous. It could be sequential so that you come to roll onto a side. And please take all the time you need. Don't rush to get to your side because this is part of the lesson. And then come back. Before you get to your side, totally come back. But don't just come back because I said come back. Listen to how. As if the ground is soft, but not so soft. There's a firmness there that you, with the bottom side of you, whether it's your back or moving into your ribs on a specific side, it's rolling into the floor without any speed bumps, without any potholes, just a smooth surface. You roll in the direction and then you roll back so that you take many, many approximations to roll to the side, because that's the lesson I'm offering. How you do it. We all know how to get to a side, but what about the process in how you do it? Can you luxuriate? And listen to how you breathe. And if you've forgotten about your hands, did you forget your hands and your arms? If one arm is rotating this way or that way, is your head partaking? And in your own time, when you feel with many approximations of going and returning. And then the next time, maybe you go a little further and then you return. You wind up on your selected side. And when you come onto your side, notice what you're choosing to do with your arms and your legs. And so if you're on your side, I'm going to continue. If you're not there yet because you're in your process, please continue your process. Don't rush it. You can just hear in the background. And when you're ready, but in the process, because it's the process that is most important. The process is the how. The what, that's like a litany, a list of things you already know. All of you are old enough, you've known how to get to your side. The question is how. And then notice whether you went to your right side or your left side. And then rest on your side and notice what you selected for your comfort. If you want to use the bottom arm to rest your head on, that's an option if it's comfortable. If you want to use some kind of pillow or head supports, that's another option. What would make you feel, that's comfortable. I like that. And now slowly take your top arm and lay it on the floor in front of you as a long arm and look to see if you could have it ballpark 90 degrees with your torso. So it's a long arm coming out of the shoulder joint and the palm of your hand rests on the floor. Or maybe the palm of your hand rests on the bottom hand. It depends what you've chosen. And now very slowly and very gently, listening to how you breathe, begin to roll through the ribs on the floor side in such a way that the top long arm slides away from you on the floor as if you were going to reach for something, but do it luxuriously. And then slowly, by using the ribs on the bottom side, feeling them, begin to roll back to really be on the side. Don't just reach with the top arm and strain. Feel how your whole chest, your head, even your pelvis, your top leg in relationship to the bottom leg can come along. And every time you come back to roll a little bit onto your side, could you make a subtle little movement in your fingers of the top hand as if the finger pads slowly were sliding on the surface to draw a little something towards you. And then every time you roll on the bottom ribs to slide that arm a little forward, you give up that little sensation that might develop in the palm of your hands with the pads of the fingers, still the knuckles staying long, are lengthening, as if you felt that there were rays of light could shine out of each fingertip, elongating the arm, elongating through all the way to your spine. And then slowly, as if you were subtly beginning to bring through that hand, whatever it was, just a little bit of sand, something nice back towards you. But use the bottom side, the sensation through the bottom of your hips, your ribs, maybe the bottom arm. And you're rolling a little bit. Notice what your head wants to do. And listen to how you breathe. And listen, based on how you're breathing, whether you inhale or you exhale, what is the sensation you start to feel in the palm of your top hand? You might even notice something is already happening in the bottom hand too. That's it. Just make it as smooth and soft and nice. Some of us Some of you received some of the hugs, laughs, or jokes for the day that I put out. I have dogs, some have cats, but as if you were just gently laying your hand on them and just caressing them. Just feel how you would caress them as you rolled through your bottom ribs forward a little bit. And then as you were rolling back through the bottom ribs to return to your side, maybe you even roll a little further back. And that's when there's this sense that your fingers, the pads of your fingers, are just drawing something a little closer towards you. That's it. And then slowly use this sensation to give up the constraint of lying on your side to roll onto your back. But feel the bottom side of you, the ribs, and as you transition, the bottom shoulder blade, the back of your head, the back of your hips, your pelvis, to return to your back and rest. And when is the timing that the other limbs, like your legs, relinquish standing? They go long. And you rest. And if you're more comfortable with your feet standing instead of legs long, then you honor that. You just notice where it's different because it's options we're looking at, not corrections. And listen to your breathing. And then the side that you had rolled to, bring your feet back to stand. Think about that vertebra, or maybe it's a different vertebra that wants to lean back into the floor. Listen to how you breathe. That begins to create this folding sensation, certainly through your torso. And feel, could you then begin to roll again, back onto the initial side, the first side you chose. Maybe you notice that your head follows, your eyes want to go in that direction. And feel the bottom side, you're rolling gently. And you return in this process onto that side again. Now this time, with your top arm that's resting on the floor or either on your bottom hand, change its orientation a little off of 90 degrees. And notice if you want to slide that hand, that long arm, a little further downward or a little further upward. And it doesn't have to be a lot. Just listen how far you slid it as a long arm, either up or down, and then begin that same process, sliding through, rolling on the bottom side so that the top arm lengthens in this newer trajectory. And think that through each finger, there's a ray of light spreading out. Maybe the fingers widen a little bit. And then slowly draw the fingers back, feeling the pads of the fingers as if they're sliding into a sand or something soft that you could draw back towards you just a little bit. But the rolling coming back to the side is through feeling the bottom side. Listen to how you breathe. And then as you're coming back, rolling back, can you think about that vertebra again then when you were on your back? Could you initiate the rolling back not only from the bottom side, the ribs, but also the back of you, that vertebra, it wants to start to arc back. And you notice how your hips, your knees, your head are a part of the movement. And then go ahead, as you continue this on your side, change the trajectory of your top arm so that it moves a little bit more away from the 90 degrees. Just notice if you're sliding that arm downward or you're sliding that arm upward. And here's a wonderful image as if you were lying on a big, soft clock. You could think of the minutes on a clock, or maybe the hours, but pick one trajectory and begin to slide the arm in that trajectory. That's it. And notice with each trajectory, you'll continue to find another trajectory where it feels different in the shoulder joint, where it feels different on the ribs, the floor side, as well as the top side. And does your head want to follow? Make sure that you don't, it's not about circling around the clock. Think of more spoking, as if you were sliding the arm a few times in the trajectory you chose, and then you moved it to another trajectory. For some, you might think of a minute or two. For others, you might think of an hour. But keep it in that trajectory a couple of times so that your nervous system can really discern what's different. Does it change the way your head might roll? Does it change how you roll on the bottom side of the ribs? Does it change the shape of your spine? And begin to play. Notice if your preference is to go on the portion of the clock further up above the bottom arm, if it's in front of you at 90 degrees, or do you prefer to go lower down? How does that affect and change the shape of your spine? And then when you're ready, use this exploration, this pattern. The same way you got to your side, roll back onto your back. So there's a wonderful variation going on the floor, I notice. Person who's listening to themselves to keep themselves more on their back and explore this way. It's possible. When we listen to ourselves, we can begin to reinvent how. Remember how I spoke about my grandma? It wasn't the exact ingredients to the recipe because she might not have had all of those ingredients in her house. She had to look around and say, what do I have? What can I use? And still make something wonderful that's nourishing. It's in our thinking. And notice your contact. And then again, listening to your breathing. Notice if through the inhalation into your exhalation, you feel something trailing all the way down your arms and into your hands. And if you were an infant, would there be a movement? And because I also work with babies, I also watch them, especially when they're suckling their mother's breast or the bottle. The baby is doing something with their hands. They're not being told what to do. They feel something and it's nurturing. It's drawing inward and then it's softening. It's drawing inward and it's softening. And then very slowly, bring your feet to stand. Find that vertebra in the back of you, or maybe it's another one now. Maybe you're exploring with many different ones where you could lean backward into the floor and from there begin to roll. Roll onto a side. And some are choosing to go to the other side. Some are staying with the same side. It's all fine because you are listening to yourself. And just notice when you get to the side, is your preference to have your hips and knees bent 90 degrees or less than that? Make sure you're comfortable. And then continue the path of the top arm, long, sliding as a spoke, a few degrees, moving it forward, drawing it back, listening to what the hand does as the arm is long, feeling the bottom side, and continue to explore different trajectories of where you slide your arm. And listen to the relationship it has through your spine and your head. Some of you are noticing that the more you take the top arm upward in the direction on the floor, going up in the direction of your head or higher up, feel what happens in your spine. Feel what happens in your belly, in your chest, in your pelvis. And what's different when you redirect that top long arm downward, closer in the direction of your knees? Is it different? The shape of your spine? Does your head still want to come along, or does your head just have an obsession to go one direction? So notice, if the arm for several of you now is going downward, is the head just rolling towards the floor? Could the head be rolling in the direction as if it wanted to look at the hand going downward, meaning your chin would be going downward towards your chest? The head would have to change its trajectory a little bit. Yes. What happens is there that vertebra in your back that gets elucidated? What happens in your belly or your pelvis? And then when you start to take the arm a little further upward, is your head just rolling to the floor? Can your head start to roll as if it wants to look upward towards the hand that is spreading the fingers, rays of light, as if it was reaching for something, and then it slowly wants to draw it back? So some of you are already realizing that I'm speaking about a bell hand. And if there are those of you who are not sure in your Feldenkrais experience what I mean, you know the dome on a little bell, you know, like the little bell that they would ring. Oh, if you saw Downton Abbey, they would ring the little bell. So it's a dome shape. So it's the sensation that the fingers stay long, but the palm of the hand comes into a little dome. And when do you feel that dome sensation? Is it when you're spreading the rays of light out of your fingers, elongating them, or when they're coming back towards you? And listen to the bottom side rolling through it. Listen to the vertebra or vertebras of your back and how they're affected depending on where you spoke your top long arm. That's it. And you'll begin to notice that in certain trajectories, your whole being is folding, flexing. And in another area of trajectory of the arm, your whole spine is starting to arch a little bit. The front of you is getting long. The back of you is working. That's it. Can you see that this one way of exploring could, in one direction, as long as you listen to things that constrained you and allowed them to move out of the way, they could lead you to roll onto your belly. And in the other direction, as long as you gave up some of the constraints and you felt maybe the bottom arm help you, and the top leg help you, it could sweep you into sitting. But I'm not concerned in the outcome of coming to sit or lying on your belly. I'm more concerned in the process of how. Because I see when some of you get the idea of what I've mentioned, you try to go do it, you then strain a little bit, meaning there's too much tension squeezing the legs. You want to achieve it, you want to do it. And I want you to just play. Maybe if you are, some of you are going to your belly now, trying to go to your belly, could you separate the legs if you do that? It means the bottom leg has to straighten and move away from the top leg. And then how do you come and bring yourself back to the side? And I know some are in places where you might not have enough space and you don't want to come off of the bed. So you figure it out. Just keep sliding the arm away from you and bringing it towards you, but with a soft hand. And notice when all of a sudden you're efforting to come back. Where could something else soften? Where could the ground be your friend? That you roll through the ground, that you always know, here's the ground underneath me, and it's my friend. And then rest. Let that go and rest. Yeah, some of you decided I'm going to bring it up to sit. But rest. That's it. Beautiful. Yeah, just rest. And notice your contact. Notice your breathing. Notice the length. If there are places where you're beginning to sense something feels a little longer or looser or softer, or maybe you're feeling something else. And now slowly go to a side. You can go to another side. You can stay with the same side. You see, I'm giving you a lot of freedom because my hope is that when you're at home, which you are now, but you're going to play with you on your own, that you don't always have to wait for a class, that you'll choose where you want to be, where something starts to wake up within you and it starts to say, ooh. But now let's change it up a little bit. So come onto the side, whichever side you want to be, and see if it's possible. What would have to happen if I said this time, on whichever side you're going to be, you're actually going to let the top arm bend in the elbow so that the forearm, wrist, and hand rest on the floor. It's sort of like the forearm and the upper arm of the top arm has a 90-degree angle. But it's not a hand in a push-up position. The hand, wrist, forearm, elbow is actually lying on the floor in front of you. That's it. It means it's not a push-up position. So some of you still have your hand in a push-up position. You'll have to roll yourself a little bit more forward, some of you, so that the elbow, forearm, and hand are lying on the floor. Bent. Okay, so let me clarify something. Most of you have your hips and knees bent 90 degrees, correct? So go ahead and feel that in your legs, they're bent in the hips, they're bent in the knees. That your forelegs, the lower legs, are parallel to your spine, correct? Now, please replicate that with your arms. The only difference is where your feet are down, your hands will be up in the direction over your head. That's it. Okay. So see, I keep looking for how can I elucidate something. Now with the top arm, if it's resting on, bend the elbow so that the forearm and hand is pointing upwards. It is not a push-up position. It is not a push-up position. Put the hand, wrist, and forearm on the floor. Bend the elbow, not in the air, on the floor. Put your forearm and hand up in the direction of your head. Put the forearm, elbow on the floor. Yes, yes, yes. You have to roll your chest forward. Why are we resisting rolling the chest forward? Good. Okay, I think we got it now. Now, with the top arm bent in the elbow at 90 degrees, the elbow, forearm, wrist, and hand, they're long. From the elbow up, that arm is long. The hand is long. Please, as you exhale, slide that forearm and hand and wrist forward. That's it. And then slide it back. That's it. The elbow, forearm, and hand stay on the floor. Your head is resting either on pads and support or your bottom arm. The elbow, so I'm going to keep repeating this because it's not clear. People are still wanting to have a hand in a push-up position. So good. Some of you need to just get up and look at what others are doing. There are enough of you that have your self towards the screen that there are other people that can actually see. Some of you have your back. But now roll yourself so that that forearm, long elbow, forearm, and hand slide forward on the floor. On the floor. That's it. And come back. Feel how you have to organize yourself through your spine. Does your head want to roll? And does your head want to roll in the direction to look at the floor? And then you can begin to change the trajectory that your elbow is pointing towards. Again, the elbow could want to be going upward with the hand in this funny position. What would your head do to look at the hand? Or if you want to slide that elbow further down in the direction of your knees, would your head have to roll and follow? That's it. There we go. Now you're starting to understand what's being asked. You see, we get a pattern in our brain, and then it's like, what are you asking me to do? This doesn't make any sense. That's it. Lovely. It's not clear for everybody yet. It's okay. Just leave it alone, roll to your back and rest. That's it. Some are finding how to roll as a roll. And some we need to scooch and ooch, and it's okay. And as you rest on your back, just every time you breathe in and every time you exhale, pay attention that something has the ability to travel all the way down into your hands. And begin to pay attention as a result of how you're breathing, lying on your back, or if you're lying on your side still. Feel, can you begin to sense that the hands want to do something? It's not a big doing, it's just a subtle mirroring of what happened as an infant, that you gave up having to do it. You just listen. That's it. And now very slowly, very gently, roll to your other side, but do it the same process. The same process. Bring your feet to stand, many, many approximations so that you don't just try to get to the side. The minute you feel like, oops, you go ahead and you come back to your back and you start again. And some of you are finding that the arms actually start to rotate. And one arm might rotate internally, palm would go face down. One arm might rotate externally, palm would go face up. Just by the rolling to the side. Can you feel it? And then on your side, whether you're using the same side or the second side, begin to explore first the long arm, sliding forward on the floor, and then begin to think every time it slides away from you in whatever trajectory you're finding, can you feel that the fingers spread and have the sense of rays of light coming out through the fingers? But those rays of light are coming from your spine. And then as you bring the hand back, a long arm back, can you feel that the finger pads slowly want to just, as if they're tunneling a little bit into the surface of your mat, or if this was a soft beach. Or if there was something you just underneath your fingertips, you just started to draw back towards you, lightly. And then begin to play with the different trajectories that your arm could go. And yes, what's the difference with the second variation when I had you bend the elbow so that the elbow, forearm, and hand, wrist and hand, were flat on the floor in front of you. And you use that as your lever to slide the arm forward. Let the whole forearm and hand slide with it. Don't just think of the elbow. You've shortened your lever. So other portions of you need to come along sooner. And what happens in your spine when you direct that forearm, if it's just the forearm and elbow or it's the whole arm, what happens through your entire spine, your head, your neck, when you change the trajectory going more upward on the upper portion of the clock, or you go downward? How much of your spine, your head, your rib basket, your pelvis participate in a congruent pattern? That's it. And if you actually wanted to begin to roll to your belly, how would the bottom leg have to get out of your way so that the top leg could move onto the floor? And then how would you bring yourself back onto your side? You could do it in little teeny weeny bits so that you never fully go plop and then how do I get back? You just a little bit and then you reverse it. And then the next time you go a little bit further and then you reverse it. So that it's always becoming reversible. And feel through your spine, your pelvis, your rib basket, your head, and the spine that connects them. What brings you back? And listen to your breathing. And listen if your hands at any time cease that sensation of like the baby when they're nursing. There's a way that they move those hands to nurture them. Does that stop? Did you forget that? Because that movement is a movement not just of the hands, it's of the mouth, it's in the feet, it's in every cell of you wanting to either fold or open. Fold or open. Lovely. See, now I can sense many of you are feeling the floor and how you are rolling on the floor through the skeleton resting on the floor. It's your skeleton. But please see if you are clenching your legs together If you can soften the legs, soften the thighs, soften the knees, soften your intention. When we see babies that squeeze their legs together, we know there's something going on we need to address. So go back to being an infant, because the legs spread. Bottom leg has to, that's it. And then come back. That's better. There we go. And then feel when you want to reverse it. If you feel, oh, I went a little too far. How do I come back? Which of those spheres, your head, your rib basket, your pelvic bowl, or the communication amongst all three of them? That's it. How would you bring them back? Where is that one vertebra you found when you were lying on the floor? There you go. That's it. So you fold, and you open, and you fold, and you open. Fold when you're on your side, open when you go to your belly or towards your belly, fold to come back onto your side, and begin to roll and unfold to come to your back. And always feel the bottom side. It's like you are the tire rolling on the ground. You have treads. Let your treads feel the ground support. And then come lie on your back and rest. And now one last thing, because I'm going to keep building on this. You'll see where it's going to go. When you come to your back and you rest, just feel yourself. Listen to your breathing. Listen to your contact. And so this concept that I mentioned once, and I'll say it again, where I really was very elusive about bell hand. Right now, lying on your back, what if through both of your fingers, but not just the fingers are connected all the way straight through the palm, the wrist, the forearm, the elbow, the upper arm, your shoulder blade, all the way through your shoulder girdle into your spine. Can you imagine both hands, both arms, whether they are elbows bent, whether the arms are long, whether they are palm face up or palm face down? Can you get that same sensation of the elongation gently of the fingers widening, rays of light all the way out from your spine outward, and then slowly drawing them a little back? And then as you keep doing that, what if you had the same sensation all the way through your legs, from your pelvic bowl through your spine, your pelvic bowl, down through your upper legs, your knees, your lower legs, the ankles, the feet, the toes? Could you have that sensation also, that elongating through all of those limbs and then them softening? An opening, an elongation, and listen to the contact of your spine. It could do a couple of things. And then a coming back. And listen to how you breathe. Are you inhaling? Are you exhaling? Of course you are. When? And there's no right or wrong. There's simply different ways of coming at it, noticing what you first do. Could you do the opposite? And like a starfish, could you open from all of these limbs opening? That means your head too, through your spine, elongating, your arms, fingers elongating, rays of light, your legs, toes elongating, everything from the center, the core of you, outward into the universe, and then coming back. And you just notice. If your palms are face down, you could play with the rotation of your arms, palms face up. If your elbows are bent and your arms are on your tummy, there is that sensation of through the elbows out, but the hands can still do it. If your feet are standing, you can still find ways of the sensation of outward opening, extending, inward folding, nurturing. The inhalation, the exhalation. The exhalation, the inhalation. And then let that all soften. Begin again to turn inward to sense and feel your contact with the floor. What's changed? What you're going, I've been to some of these other classes. Wow, I think I sense a thread here. Maybe this is your first class and you're going, no, I don't, how would I? But maybe from other lessons you've done. And it's okay if you're going, I'm not sure. Your brain is absorbing, assimilating, learning. And slowly, roll by way of one side. Think about the ground that you'll roll on. Smooth. No potholes, no speed bumps. Easy. How you breathe. That nothing is left out. Nothing is out to pasture. And slowly roll by way of one side to come to sit and bring yourself up to stand. And in your own time, are you also listening to your breathing? Are you also listening to there's folding and there's openings? Are you also listening to the softness of your eyes, your jaw, your tongue, your intention? Instead of willpower, could it be, what else should we say when we're thinking of willpower? Could we think of softening of that? And then in the vertical, notice what you notice. And then could you think of those limbs again? The feet are on the floor. Your head is on top of the spine, hopefully. What about your arms? Bring your arms where they're comfortable for you. They could be down, they could be out to the sides, they could be up overhead. But can you get that same sensation that you did on the floor at the end of that elongating, lengthening, and spokes of light coming out through the fingers, down through your legs, from your spine outward in every direction. And then slowly bring them back inward.